without further ado, let's jump into some Power Bomb Weekly, because shit is crazy in the wrestling world.
It
Now,
really is.
last
really
week,
is.
Dan was like, Vince is back. He's gonna sell the company, and then there were like next day, literally rumors were Saudi Arabia
Next day,
bought it.
bro. Later,
Yeah,
after we recorded,
you right. You
because I
sent the
remember, yeah, because I
yeah.
remember saying like worst case scenario, he sells it to Saudi Arabia, they take over and let Vince run the company. We stopped the podcast and look at the phone. Vince McMahon has sold the WWE to Saudi Arabia,
Yeah,
and then that turned out to just be rumors. None of it was official. But yeah, so a lot has gone down since then. So before I pull up my what I have here, so basically that happened, and a lot of what I was talking about, where it's like, is he selling to Saudi Arabia? Is Disney going to buy it? Is it going to go to AEW? And literally all those things that I said are all potentially rumored to be happening. So it's
yeah,
just like we're getting to that point where it's just like what's going to happen? And Vince McMahon's getting sued again because of how he got back on the board, where it's just like, hey, I showed up and other people need to get fired for me to take my place back on the board. So I'm firing 3 people to bring myself and 2 other people back on the board. And
yeah.
so they're suing him for that. And then, Stephanie McMahon and Triple H, they're having the thing. Stephanie McMahon's gone now. And yeah, so he's getting sued again for that. And for the whole, like, he instituted a bylaw that's just like, the only way WWE can be sold to any company is if Vince McMahon has, gives the okay. And of course, Vince McMahon himself is the one who put that bylaw in.
Yeah,
so, so there's like a lot
nice.
of things going on where it's just like, what is happening? In that time, so from then to this week, WWE's had 2 meetings with the staff, like
The
everybody
board.
that works there, all the
Okay.
wrestlers, where Triple H had to get with the people and just like, because there's a lot of people getting upset. He's like, listen, I'm still running creative. Nothing's changing. He did that on SmackDown, and then he did the meeting again on Monday on Raw. Like, we're still running it. I'm still here. I'm still doing creative. I got you. Don't worry. So this is going on, and then while this is
Yo,
happening, McMahon is just
I feel
running
like
wild.
Vince heard our podcast where I was like really happy he's gone and he's not ruining the company anymore, and he was like, "Hold my beer." He's like, "I'm fucking coming back. Like, fuck Eslam. I'm gonna just ruin this shit. Sell it to oil money."
Joke's on him. Like, if you care, like,
Yeah, right. I know. I mean, I
but
care because you care,
yeah,
but otherwise, like, all right, whatever.
yeah, no, no, it's yeah, I don't know what's going on, but anyway, so first news story I have, let's see, let me share my screen here. Of course, as always, I like to get my news from Wrestle Talk. I feel like they're some of the best people to get your wrestling news from. So Nick Khan, who is the sole CEO of WWE, the person who was hired by Vince McMahon years ago to help him sell the company, who's now the CEO, he was asked recently if he feels threatened by Tony Khan, owner of AEW, on whether or not Tony Khan's willing, to go out there and buy WWE. So the reason for that is recently Tony Khan was on a podcast or an interview or something, and they asked him like, "Hey, I know you've heard about all the rumors of WWE, quote unquote, your competition potentially being sold. Are you interested?" And Tony Khan's response was like, "Well, myself and my father owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. He owns like this one, whatever soccer team in Europe. He owns like basically U.S. Steel. So it's just like we can't afford to do it. If we have to partner up with somebody to do so, we can do that as well. And we're very interested in what's going on with the sale." That's all he stated. And then, of course, he turned into full promoter. He's like, but if you want to find anything out, tune in on Wednesdays for AEW Dynamite. Tune in on Fridays for Rampage, because you never know what I'm going to announce. And that's where he announced he bought Ring of Honor on an episode of Dynamite. So,
Now,
yeah,
if the cons buy WWE,
Are they
do you think
related?
these two, no. No.
if the cons buy WWE,
hmm
do they fold it into AEW or do they keep it as WWE and then they do like cross promotions within their own company?
I'd like to say Tony Khan, if he were to be running both, crazy to even think that. I think WWE exists as WWE, AEW exists as AEW, just like how Ring of Honor exists separate of AEW. Yes,
Yeah.
some of the wrestlers overlap. One of the reasons for that is because Ring of Honor currently doesn't have a show. So for him to keep the promotion alive and keep the titles alive and keep their pay-per-views alive, he does have some of those wrestlers come over to AEW and vice versa, and they compete with one another. I mean, he had Chris Jericho, the first ever person signed by AEW, was recently the Ring of Honor champion. So it's like there's cross promotion that way. And think of it this way, where you have WWE, where they have a show such as Survivor Series, where you have teams going up against each other. Imagine a scenario where you have WWE versus AEW versus Ring of Honor on one pay-per-view. Or if you have the
Oh
Royal
damn.
Rumble. Royal
Yeah, yeah,
Rumble could be 30 people. Who's to say 30 people from just one company? It
yeah.
could be
10,
30
10,
people from
10.
anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's like these are all scenarios that are cool, and it's funny because a lot of people were started putting the logo where it was like AEW and the W was the WWE logo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah.
The wrestling multiverse is going to be
yeah,
created.
well that's the thing.
Yeah.
Cross
Tony Khan was
merging.
referring to himself as the Forbidden Door. The Forbidden Door was like the expression that the WWE used. It's like if you can go through the Forbidden Door, you go through from one promotion to another. And Hiroshi Tanahashi in New Japan Pro Wrestling was the first person to say the phrase, and then Tony Khan bought the rights to it and said, "I am the Forbidden Door," because everybody
Damn.
went through AEW and Ring of Honor. So like that can happen, and that's cool. But anyway, in this article, it's on Wrestle Talk, written by let's see, Ryan Coogan. Basically, they interviewed Nick Khan and said if he feels threatened by Tony Khan saying that potential buy of AEW, and he said, "No, I'm not threatened. I'm not threatened by anyone or anything. That's just not how I do stuff. We're gonna if we do decide to sell, we're gonna sell to, whoever is the highest bidder, whoever we can make the best profit." So that's really what it is. It's kind of like a non-story, but that is kind of just like you see the different perspectives of how AEW's Tony Khan is looking at things and how Nick Khan is kind of running things. Now as the sole CEO, and then Vince McMahon just doing his thing, just running around being Vince.
Yo, this dude's fucking. I feel like he's just hopped up on like coke and shit, and
I don't
Adderall,
know.
and just.
There's been a lot of rumors lately that he's going to be in this year's Royal Rumble, and that's at the end of this month. And if he's going to be in the Royal Rumble, this man's going to win. I guarantee he's going to beat 29 other wrestlers and make himself champion. But
Right before he sells it.
well, that's another thing. Now people are starting to say, did he put himself in this position and say he's going to sell just so he can put himself in this position because he was making the whole bylaw?
Mm-hmm.
So who's to say that he's just like there now? He's like, well, you can't sell without me, and we're trying to sell, so I have to be here. So like that's another reason why he's getting sued. It's like, did he just make all these circumstances up just so he can put himself back in that position, and he has no intention of selling? So it's like there's a lot of things that are going around.
So he can take control back of the company.
Exactly.
But how can he put a bylaw in if he wasn't part of the company?
He was the majority shareholder, and then his shares had specific powers where he was able to do certain things, and these were his powers. It's insane. Think of it as basically somebody activated his trap card, and he was like, "Well, I can do this," and that's literally what happened.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
For anybody who understood that, and we don't care, Rudy. For anybody who understood that, that was a great reference.
It really was. Like, yeah, this man's out here playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Everybody else is playing Uno. But anyway. So that's that story. Now I'm going to move over to another story, very, very sad story. So recently, Ring of Honor legend passed away. And I mean as recently as yesterday. So Jay Briscoe, one half of the Briscoes, he and his brother Mark, the current, I guess former now, Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. So Jay Briscoe passed away in a car accident yesterday being Tuesday. So you guys can see the screen, right? So this is Jay Briscoe. First off, I've showed Jay Briscoe a few times on the podcast. One of the most intimidating looking wrestlers I've ever seen in my life.
He looks
Jay Briscoe
scary
is
as
just,
hell.
you don't mess with Jay Briscoe. He and his brother Mark is basically looks like him, just bald. And it's like you don't mess with the Briscoes. And Jay was the older of the two, and
Every
Jay
time you
was
say that, I just think of brisket. I don't know why.
Yeah, but Jay Briscoe was like a standard in Ring of Honor for years. He was just like he was always there. He's multiple time Ring of Honor World Champion, Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion, even more. And a bunch of people that made it to WWE or AEW, they have this man to credit for. Like he put a lot of people on the map. There's a lot of wrestlers that were just like we wouldn't be where we are today if not for Jay. Triple H, who never worked with Jay Briscoe, put out a tweet saying that Jay Briscoe is like one of the greatest names in wrestling history. Like this man is a true legend. So
Man.
the story is essentially he was in a car accident. I don't. It says it a little bit here in this article. Once again on Wrestle Talk, written by Liam Winnard, where Jay was driving. There was somebody else who was driving. They were both, he's from Delaware, and something happened where one of the cars like went on to the other side of the road. I believe they said it was this lady's car who went over to his side, uh, collided head on. He passed away. The driver passed away. Jay was in the car with his two young daughters.
Oh
One of
Man.
which I
no.
think is stable and injured. The other one, the last I heard, she was going to go into surgery. They're not sure she's going to be able to walk anymore.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
That's like
so
my
yeah,
worst fear since I'm like doing Uber and I'm on the
yeah,
road like 8 hours plus a day. I just, that's my
I can
worst
imagine. Yeah.
nightmare. Man.
So it's a sad story. I know the wife, Jay's wife, she put out a tweet recently and like, hey, we're very religious family. If you could all just pray, we'd very much like that. She said that. So it's very sad to see. And there's a video that's been circulating during COVID. So Jay Briscoe, this big tough guy looking with tattoos and the dreads and everything. There's a video that's been circulating on Twitter and TikTok, I believe, where his daughter had to practice for a cheerleading tryout, and Jay puts his hair up and like with the cheerleader bow, and he's doing the cheerleading routine with her. And, like this
Yeah.
badass, intimidating dude is just right there. He's like clapping his hands, saying the chant thing. It's like, and a lot of people in the tributes have been saying it's like Jay Briscoe is like one of the toughest guys and one of the nicest people you could ever meet. It's like he's one of those guys that give you the shirt off the back. This reminds me a lot of the Brody Lee a few years
Yeah.
ago when Brody Lee passed away. Very similar situation. Man was respected by everyone. So it's very sad to see him go. Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing else to say. We don't
It's
know.
it's tough,
Yeah.
especially the children got hurt as well,
Hmm.
and man, God bless his wife,
Hmm.
because she lost her husband as well as both her kids are hurt. So my
Yeah.
God, I cannot even begin to imagine what she's going through.
Yeah.
And I hope like God, guides you and makes you strong through these tough times because that is I can't even imagine, bro. Like,
Definitely give her
oh
the
man,
strength, man. That I can't exactly like you said. Can't even imagine. Just imagine the three closest people to you
Hmm.
are just
yeah,
one's gone and
Yeah.
two of them are like not the
Yeah.
same. Man,
And I think they have another child. I could be wrong. I think they have another kid who, thank God wasn't involved in the accident. But no, you're absolutely right. Where it's just like,
yeah,
this is your two daughters. This is your husband. Like, this is like, how do you deal with all that? While also you're trying to deal with that, and then you have this other kid who's just like, yeah, you have to console them and make sure they're okay.
yeah,
So it's a
I,
lot going on.
I hope she has a
But
great network and just thoughts
yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
prayers, man.
yeah, that, and then like I said, Jay, remember he's one half of a tag team. He's teamed with his real life brother Mark. And Mark's another guy who everybody's just like, hey, he's great. He's Jay's younger brother by like a year or two. And if you look at videos, these guys started wrestling when they were like 16, 17 years old. So they've been a tag team for almost, I mean, he's 38. Like that's,
Wow.
more than half their lives. They've been together in wrestling, let alone together in life.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like that's another one where Mark, as far as Jay, as long as Jay's been wrestling, Mark has been there, and Mark
Mhm.
is another guy. I've seen these two guys fight each other, and it's true. Whenever you see any two wrestlers who are brothers fight one another, they hit hardest, and it was never more true than with the Briscoes. Like they looked like they were out to murder each other, and they would put on bangers every single time. So, and that's another thing. What's gonna happen with Mark? You know, you look back at what happened with Bret Hart when Owen passed away. Bret kind of like left a little bit. He went over to WCW and stuff didn't go right there. And you know, hopefully Mark is okay, but hopefully he still has a career if he wishes to keep a career, in pro wrestling. And yeah, so to his wife, to his kids, to his brother, to everybody who's known him, all the other family members, our thoughts and prayers go out to them, of course. But just a sad story overall. So, RIP Jay Briscoe.